Okay, so let's break down this mastering rack I have. Like I said, I use this in every one of my tracks. This is one of my favorite racks to use. It's been tried and tested. I've used it in multiple genres, and I've basically adjusted it over the years to kind of develop it to something that works on every track. For when I'm fresh into a new idea and I want to see how it sounds after all the processing, I just throw it on there real quick and then adjust accordingly. Now, obviously, that doesn't help you by showing you how I kind of developed it and routed it and everything. So I'll explain that to you right now. First of all, let's ungroup this whole rack here so that I can power them on one by one and you can see what each one does. So first we're going to power them off. And I'll just go over them real quickly, and then we'll get more detailed into each one as I go into it. So I got multiband dynamics, I got a EQ4, I got a Kramer Pi compressor, R-based stereo that adds harmonics to low end. This is a non-linear summer. It basically is a summon plugin which kind of glues everything together. You have all these different tracks coming into the master channel. This helps kind of make everything cohesive and add harmonics to the entire mix. One knob fatter is for low end, boosting up the low end, making it saturated, a little warmer and thick. Maserati GRP is an EQ plus a compressor that is actually meant to work with stems or groups. So you can take multiple sounds and throw it into this thing, and it kind of does a great job with blending multiple stems together to make it sound like it's one sound. And then I have a limiter and then my meter here to gauge where I'm going here. So first, let's go into Ableton's multiband compressor. This is the first one I like to throw on the mastering rack always. It just gives it a little bit of crispiness to start the signal chain. You got to figure that you are adjusting the output of the previous plugin. So for instance, this is adjusting the signal that this is outputting. So I want to make sure that this gets the most proper signal it can before it starts adjusting it. And then I add on more and then more and then more. And you have to keep this in mind when you're arranging the order of each one of these devices, because the order of these is very much a factor in how your final mix is going to sound. You don't want to put a limiter in the first part of the chain and then put all these compressors and stuff over it, because you're limiting already the signal by capping it off at whatever your ceiling is out here. So you're really, pretty much limiting what you can do as far as mastering capabilities when you have, a setup like that. So it is important where you place these in your rack. So let's get the multiband dynamics first. Let's take a listen without it. Now, the way you want to use this is when you see these meters bouncing up and down, you want to adjust these to just where it's touching the end of the meter here. And then it's good to adjust during the chorus to see what the peak sounds like. Okay, so yeah, this is just to add a little bit harmonic brightness. Sorry, harmonic's not really the right word to use. Just to add a little crispiness and brightness to the overall mix before the next part comes in, which is my EQ. So let's turn this on now. And then this is just to boost a couple areas of the frequency that I want to, add into it. Right now I have a little bit of a boost here in the low end, a little bit of boost here in the high end. can hear the difference really easily actually with this one. The reason why I like using waves the most is because they emulate analog gear pretty close. UAD, Universal Audio, is another company that makes, you know, expensive but really good plugins that do the same thing. They emulate what it sounds like to mix in analog gear closer than other companies, I think. Ableton plugins are really good, but they're not on the level as waves are. I don't really believe that's, you know, more preference based. Okay, so we have a VEQ4 from Waves. The adjustments I made, like I said, here is the high pass, the low pass, the low frequencies. It's at 100 hertz. The high IQ is turned on. So this adds a little bit of color to the signal before the next part, which is the compressor. This is where a lot of the volume gets made up, and you kind of really start hitting your limit here, where you can adjust the volume. Or not, you don't start hitting your limit, but this is where you would adjust the volume to boost the overall signal. If it's too low, go to your first compressor in your rack and then push the threshold in the output. So let's bring in the next part, the Kramer Pi, the Kramer Pi compressor here. And this is an analog or a emulation of an analog compressor. And then let's turn on the meter here. Now you can hear that as soon as I press play, it's probably already going to be at the level that we want. Okay, it's not yet actually. Usually the compressor is responsible for most of the volume gain, so I'm surprised it wasn't hitting already -8. So we have a lot of room to work with here, and that's actually pretty good because that means that I have room to push this further after all of these are turned on. So the compressor is pretty much self-explanatory, similar to how Ableton's compressor works. You have similar parameters. You got your threshold, your output, your compression ratio. And then I believe this is the attack and the release. The decay, they call it the decay time, but I believe this is just where your attack and release is. So they just labeled it differently, but this would be the release actually. That's what decay time is the same thing as. Okay, so if I wanted to make this louder, just to gain some overall volume, I would put the output up. But we're gonna leave it at 0 for now because I want to see how much room I have after all of these are turned on. So next I would bring in our bass stereo. This is a nifty little utility from Waves that adds harmonics to your low end. It's just basically a way to have a nice little warmth added to your low end. So basically the way it works is that you choose the frequency spectrum or the area of the frequency that you're working with here, and then you boost as you go in. So let's say I want to work in the area of about 65 hertz and I want to boost that up. Let's go up to like say 11. And then now adjust this and kind of drag it throughout the spectrum until you hear a difference.